In 1989, Jimmy C. Gardner was accused of the sexual assault of two elderly white women in Charleston. He spent nearly 3 decades imprisoned for a crime that he did not commit. He now is a motivational speaker. Here to give us more insight about this story is Dr. E. Bernard Jordan. Dr. Jordan, before we kind of go to what has happened recently, I want to dig into the scene. Paint the picture for us of what happened at the helm of this situation.
Well, here is a man that was going to school down in Florida. He was staying with his aunt. And while he was there, he gets a knock on the door, and some people from West Virginia ask for his forensic, and he begins to give them that because he knew that what he was being charged with, he was not the individual that had raped two elderly white women. Now you got to understand, this is a black man, African American man, who is being accused of raping two white elderly women. He freely gives away his forensic, knowing that he's innocent, only to discover that he is now being charged and put away for just about 3 decades of his life. This is literally crazy.
What is it that caused them to now, almost 27 years later, overturn whatever decisions were already made?
They realized that the seriologists began to falsify his evidence so that he could make it look like that Jimmy Gardner had did the particular crime. What is ridiculous about this is that it took away 27 years of this man's life, and he had to serve that time knowing that he was innocent. When they found out that it was falsified, he was freed from prison, but they gave him a settlement that is almost like an allowance that a child should get each year.
I think it's important to note, as it relates to the settlement, that at the time he was in college studying business management and also was playing for a baseball league. And so the amount of money that he would have accumulated over 27 years, Dr. Jordan, what's your thought on that?
Well, $175,000 is ridiculous because he should have been making that a year. When we begin to look at that, he was going to college for business management. He also was a sports player. I mean, you cannot begin to look at what the potential of a person's life is. But let's say he had left school in the business management back then in 1989, he probably would have been starting out with about $50,000 a year. And we begin to see that each year he would have accumulated and grown. He probably would have possibly opened up his own business. He also would have had built a family. I mean, his whole future was taken away from him. And when you begin to look at the potential that was stripped away from him, that his life was not, he has no retirement. He has nothing built up in terms of his own personal life. And so $175,000 for an individual for 27 years of his life, that's ridiculous. It's not even $7,000 a year. So when we begin to look at it, the quality of his life in the system didn't even think that he was even worth more than that. What kind of representation did he have? Who went to bat for him? And this is why we begin to see that this is definitely a case that someone needs to bring up. Black Lives Matter, because evidently they did not even think that he was even worth no more than about $4 an hour. This is just ludicrous.
In my final thought, I want to read a quote that Jimmy C. Gardner recently gave. I want to read this quote to you. And it says, "We should make it so everyone has an opportunity to receive proper representation. That's something that I did not have. We should also try to come together to eradicate some of these archaic laws throughout the United States of America and some of the prison punishments." Jimmy C. Gardner is now a motivational speaker. If you want to know more about him, you can go to jcgardnerspeaks.com. As always, Dr. E. Bernard Jordan, thank you so much for awesome reporting.